right, let's get to our second story. If you are that individual who is always willing to provide information, what would help government recover stolen funds? Then you need to hear this. Now, the federal government says it will henceforth reward anyone who can blow up the cover of corrupt individuals.
Finance Minister Kemi Adeosun says President Muhammadu Buhari has ordered that such individuals be paid 5% of the loot. That's the maximum really is 5%. Minimum is 2.5% of the loot when successfully recovered. According to her, the new whistleblowing policy is aimed at consolidating the ongoing anti-corruption campaign, and it is expected to be backed by a bill in the National Assembly. Let's listen to her.
What it does is it encourages anyone with information about a violation of government's financial regulations, mismanagement of public funds and assets, fraud, financial malpractice and other associated conduct to report it. It covers disclosure of information leading to the return of Nigeria's stolen or concealed funds and assets. And it's intended to strengthen the mechanism for the fight against corruption, improve governance and support the implementation of the Open Government Partnership. The memo covered the scope of the policy, the manner in which reports will be filed, which is via a website, by phone or by email. It covered anonymity, protection of the whistleblower, which was very important, that whistleblowers will be protected against sanctions, and a reward scheme in the event that somebody who is a whistleblower actually either loses their job or is financially disadvantaged as a result of the information they have provided. We have a reward scheme which will pay no more than 5%, no more than 5%. So it's a scale according to the seriousness of the financial loss. Members, of course, of FEC supported the policy wholeheartedly, but made very strong suggestions around how we safeguard public officers against malicious or false allegations. And the policy covered this. If information is provided that was deliberately false or misleading, then that case must be handed over for investigation and possible prosecution to deter frivolous reports. But this is part of our fight against corruption, our fight to strengthen institutional governance. What we've discovered is that most financial crimes, people know about them, but they're scared to speak up. It is not possible to move money, for example, with just one signature. There are always two, but people are often scared to speak up. So the whistleblower policy actually gives them protection against the consequences of doing the right thing in the public interest, and hopefully will support us to recover a lot of concealed money by providing protection to those who provide us with the information.
All right, that's the background to the story. We will go on a break and then we'll come back. But certainly don't forget, we have with us in the studio a lawyer, Emeka Nwadioke. All right, thanks for joining us right now.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll continue and then we won't forget to go on the news update for top of the hour. Now, Emeka, we just heard the Minister of Finance now, the whistleblowing policy. Now, a lot of Nigerians, we have heard the reaction. Nice policy, as the case may be. But when it comes to the procedure of bringing up a policy like that to stand, what is supposed to be? We're hearing from the minister before even sending the bill to the National Assembly.
Thank you very much. Actually, like you just said, the policy came to a lot of us as a surprise. Because we know that there's a bill already, the whistleblower bill at the National Assembly. As a matter of fact, it has passed a second reading, only that there was an issue of a similar bill whereby the Senate now resolved that the two bills should be harmonized. So this policy came to us as a surprise,
but
more like from the
minister,
blues.
sorry for interrupting.
Yes.
According to the minister, that this is just to work on the interim until the bill is passed. Perhaps the bill is taking too long. So,
yeah, exactly. Although the issue again is a policy is a policy, a law is a law. A policy cannot be elevated to the level of a law. So the cohesive nature of a policy is definitely not as high as that of a law.
So bringing in the AGF into this matter won't even help?
I'm not. Although, like I said, there's still a lot of clarity that will require, because the government really has to probably bring out guidelines regarding this policy, breaking it down. So it's actually from there that we'll get a better picture. The government really has to probably bring out guidelines regarding this policy, breaking it down. So it's actually from there that we'll get a better picture of what they plan to do.
Okay.
Until that happens, we'll have to wait.
All right, we'll come back to this. Let's get to the news update for the time. Ikechukwu is standing by now. Ike, it's all yours now.
Well, thanks very much indeed. And here are the updates. Soldiers from the 1 Mechanized Division of the Nigerian Army have intercepted 2 men carrying live ammunition in Kagoma Chiefdom in southern Kaduna. The middle-aged men were stopped as they were driving in front of the palace of the traditional ruler of Kagoma. Luck ran out on them as the general officer commanding the 1 Mechanized Division and some soldiers were in the palace at the time for peace talks. The ammunition were found during a stop-and-search exercise by the soldiers. And the death toll from Saturday's crisis in southern part of Kaduna State has now increased to 10. Goska and 2 other communities in Jama local government area were attacked by people suspected to be Fulani herdsmen. A number of houses were burned and properties destroyed. Police have denied reports of any casualty, but TVC News correspondent reports that bodies of those killed are being prepared for burial. In other stories, Lagos State Police Commissioner Fatai Osheni has ordered residents of 2 buildings within the Ikeja Police Barracks to vacate the area to avert another building collapse. Osheni's order comes a day after a toilet and bathroom within the barracks caved in, killing 2 people. One of the deceased was a police sergeant and the other a civilian. That's the update. Now back to you, Maya Kanbusalami.
All right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast. On this segment, we are discussing the whistleblowing policy as proposed by the federal government of Nigeria. Although there has been a bill on that in the National Assembly, and we heard the Minister of Finance earlier on giving us a certain breakdown of how it's going to operate and so on. We have with us in the studio a lawyer, Emeka Nwadioke, with us in the studio. Now, Emeka, the as it is right now, what impact will this whistleblowing policy have on the fight against corruption? Let us tie it together and see.
The whistleblowing policy, as far as I know, will probably have a good impact, although maybe as a lawyer I would always prefer a bill and a properly passed law, you know, and but from the policy, because I was also reviewing looking at it, and my thinking is maybe we've always had this anyway. For instance, the police usually even announces some rewards for maybe people helping to arrest somebody and all that. So maybe we can say we've always had this with us to some extent. But the policy, for all its worth, will probably encourage the anti-graft battle to the extent that maybe it will encourage more people to report. It will probably essentially do what the law, if properly passed, will help us to do. Because I was looking at the bill at the National Assembly as proposed by Senator Olujimi, you know, and essentially what the whistleblower bill proposes to do is to facilitate people and encourage people to report to report issues regarding corruption, mismanagement of public funds, and all that. And also, apart from that, assist in investigation, ensure that these complaints are investigated and all that. So a lot of provisions really. So I believe that this is part of what the policy will assist us to do by trying to encourage people to report where there are incidences of corruption, mismanagement, because actually what we used to have before now is that people who make these reports, they are invariably victimized. And actually, world over, that's what the Whistleblower Act tries to prevent, because what is actually called protected disclosure, in the sense that if you make these disclosures, you are protected from reprisals. That's really the fundamental regarding any Whistleblower Act or policy, as the case may be. So it will encourage people to report, hopefully. Yes, because really,
I like the use of the
like
word
I said,
hopefully.
yes, I always have my doubt as regards the real implementation of this policy.
Is it because of the legality or otherwise?
Exactly, fundamentally because of the legality.
That's what you think is
exactly,
is wrong.
Exactly.
But in any case, the Attorney General is involved, according to the Minister of Finance, in this. What kind of provision do you expect, really, with the Attorney General? Some kind of interim measure? What do you expect, really, as a lawyer?
Yes, what I expect essentially is like they tying it essentially again through the bill to maybe make similar guidelines as the bill would have made or the act would have made, to say if you make these disclosures, you are protected from legal action.
But what's the difference? Sorry, I'm not getting a satisfactory answer. I'm trying to recouch my question. What's the difference between what this policy now, what they are trying to do, and the presidency writing a circular? For instance, this TSA, for instance, when it came up, there was, apart from the provision of the law that allowed for that to an extent, it was just a circular written, and it became a policy. So what's the difference between that and what you're talking about legality? Yes.
Really, what we have is that essentially when you want to tackle any major national problem, you're expected to have a national policy on that. It's the national policy that says this is what you're going to do. You're going to go from point A to B. When you get to point B, this is what you do. Broad perspectives, the roadmap, essentially. Is that roadmap that you now start breaking down as you go along. But more fundamentally, you now take it from the aspect of the policy and now move to the higher level of making it a law. A policy is, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't have coercive force. So it's probably at the level of executive that they can maybe do one or two things to, but fundamentally you will need a law to really bring the cohesive nature of the issue.
But in this case, if you're talking about the legality of it, but if the government decides to make it one of their cardinal points without even it passing through or becoming a law, would it be considered as illegal?
No, definitely. There are certain things you may do or try to do under the policy, and someone can challenge you and say there's no law backing this up, and it could be overridden at some levels. For instance, I'll give you an instance of the ICPC Act. When it was passed, it was challenged. The Attorney General of Ondo versus Attorney General of the Federation, and ultimately the issue had to ride on whether corruption is. Because corruption was on Cap 2, under Cap 2, as regards fundamental objectives and principles. So, to that extent, is not actionable. But the Supreme Court had to rely on that Cap 2 to say, oh, well, the federal government is mandated to fight corruption. Therefore, this Act, ICPC Act, cannot really be overridden. But it was a bit of a long and tortuous, way to go about it. But if you have a specific law that says you cannot do A, B, and C, it's very clear. But if you come by way of policy, it becomes a bit nebulous. That's really my challenge.
Okay.
And as you go along the line, there could be a lot of legal issues and challenges that you may not be able, because you were mentioning maybe the circular or whatever. Now you discover that as regards the circular, maybe you already have the CBN Act. You have several other legislations that you can now subsume the circular under. Here we don't have a kind of ground norm
There's
act.
no anchor for that.
Yes, that you can anchor this on.
Okay.
That's the challenge.
All right, be that as it may, let's look at the policy itself, some provision of the policy that the government is promising not more than, excuse me, 5%. And somebody will ask, okay, what if the corporate decide to promise you 20%? So, okay, don't write me out. I'll give you 20%. The government's only going to give you 5%. What happens? The issue of morality in this case.
Yes, I was actually listening to the minister try to explain that aspect of the policy, and she made the point that this is not a money-making machine. MMM, another MMM. It's not anymore a money-making machine by any stretch of imagination. So, essentially, what they are trying to say, it's not even as if you just come and report a fraud, which maybe you are even involved in, and then you get 5%. It doesn't really work that way. I think what they were looking at is a situation whereby maybe you are a staff of a company. For instance, we can even look at the issue of Abdul Mumin Jibrin. You know, he's made an allegation, he's been suspended. Within the period of suspension, he's suffering some financial loss. That's actually the concept, the way I understand the explanation. He's suffering some financial loss. So, assuming he stays away for 6 months, or I think they say 180 days, is average. So, at the end of that period, he suffered a huge financial loss. So, I think the concept is that he's made this revelation. If the Whistleblower Act were to be in place, he could come under that Whistleblower Act effectively, then make this revelation. The National Assembly may have a challenge really suspending him if that act were to be in place. Although the bill I see is even trying to give them some cover.
But in Jibrin's case, his identity is known. In this case, we are not sure the whistleblower's identities will be disclosed. I think we need to go on a break right now. When we come back, you answer that question for us. Stay with us, please.
All right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and on this segment, we are discussing the whistleblowing policy of whistleblowers policy as being fronted by the federal government of Nigeria. We have in the studio a lawyer, Emeka Nwadioke, with us here. We've just been talking about this. Now, without sounding preemptive of how things are, but from your analysis of the National Assembly and how it is going about, because the whistleblowing bill has been in there for quite some time, do you think there's a deliberate move to soft pedal on the bill, on passage of the bill?
Actually, I was not able to determine when the bill went to the National Assembly, so I cannot determine how long it's taking or whether they are foot dragging on that. But I know the proponent, Senator Olujimi. I know she's a very passionate senator. She's pushed quite a number of bills, and I want to believe that she will be very keen to see that the bill is passed. But my major worry even is as regards the federal government, because part of the literature we have is that the whistleblower bill was supposed to be a major bill to be proposed by this government, being that perhaps the number one policy or policy direction or object of this administration is combating corruption. I advised myself anyway that there were issues regarding formation of the cabinet and delays and all that. But because I was also reading something, maybe quoting the vice president, that there were 5 key bills that were to be used by this federal government to pursue its objectives. And the whistleblower bill was one of it. I was trying to check the date, and it was way back June 2015. That's over a year ago. So I would have expected that perhaps the first bill, executive bill, to be pushed to the National Assembly by the federal government would be the whistleblower bill. And it surprises me that this bill is being pushed not even as an executive bill, but as a private member bill, and by even a PDP senator. So it tends to create some issues for me, as regards if you're trying to...
The presidency should have taken over this?
Definitely.
This should more passionate about it.
Definitely. This should have been perhaps the first bill they should have pushed to the National Assembly, and then put all kinds of pressure, even with their members,
instead of coming
majority.
Up with this policy, really.
Exactly.
Just eat the humble pie and work with the bill and make it work.
You get the point. So I was surprised that it's coming as a... So I do not see specifically any particular delay as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Let's bring in Foladele here to give us a perspective of reaction on social media. Fola, good morning.
Good morning, Salam.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Yes, we're working. Okay, let's see what Nigerians are saying online, or some Nigerians at least. Lisa says, 5% for the whistleblower. It seems I finally found my calling, whistleblower general of Nigeria. Olubenga Black says, now there is reward for whistleblower in Nigeria. Mbuari, let padding case against Jogara get more attention from EFCC. Awalier says, whistleblowing is now source of income in Nigeria, but the chief whistleblower is suspended. I don't understand. I know you touched on that earlier, Jibrin. Shagun Balogun says, this whistleblower package, in my opinion, will test Nigerians' loyalty to Nigeria and whether our society condones corruption. Usman Abbas Babayo says, in today's Nigeria, don't even try to be a whistleblower because most of the people at the top are boys to the bigger thieves, which I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
How transparent or how corruption-free, if I can put it like that, do you think this package, like someone called it, would be? Because say someone blows the whistle on a person who is friends to one of the people at the top, do you think something would actually be done?
It's part of the challenge, and it's actually a challenge that has been with us. For instance, you go into the police to make any reports. The next day, maybe there was an armed robbery. The next day, the suspect is out of the detention, and maybe you might even lose your life and all that, the person coming to attack you and all that. So the challenge of trust at the end of the day will be a basic challenge for any...
in any case, the government has been accused of selective justice when it comes to the fight against corruption.
Exactly. So it's always going to be a challenge. So, but I think it's going to take a process. It's about building trust. I understand there's going to be a dedicated portal where you can make reports and all that. But like I said, it's work in progress. People need to see the trend, see whether this is efficacious, and then they may key into it. But if they see that it's business as usual, you making reports, you not knowing what's going to happen to you, there are several instances like that. We understand there was even this thing against Okiro. I think whether they said the man was, suspended or whatever, and even backdated the suspension. The gentleman at the Ministry of Aviation, the gentleman is on the run. So there are challenges with making these kind of reports. But there has to be a very strong superstructure in place. And then people need to test the credibility of that structure before they can key into it.
So as usual, we have to see how it goes.
Definitely.
Fola, thank you very much for coming. Thank you. All right, Emeka, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. All right, we've been talking about the whistleblower policy in Nigeria by the federal government, And the bill is still at the National Assembly, and Nigerians are expecting it to be passed. So we've been talking to Emeka Nwadioke with us. He's a lawyer. So we'll round off this segment now. We'll go on a break and then come back with the next discussion shortly. Stay with us.